Good morning, class. So, today we start with the chapter Medieval India. Now, when we are talking about medieval India, the first dynasty that we'll look into is the Cholas. I want you to open up to page number 67 and keep your pencils ready. Now, in this particular chapter, we are going to learn about the Cholas, and the sources from which we get to know about the Chola dynasty are the various inscriptions, and the various inscriptions not just on copper plate but on Brihadeshwar temple. In this we come to know about the political history and administration under Rajaraja I and Rajendra I, the most famous rulers of the Chola dynasty. Now, the southern part of the Indian peninsula, situated south of the Krishna river, was inhabited by the Dravidians. They had their own language and culture. This region was home to three powerful kingdoms, the Cheras, the Pandyas and the Cholas. The most powerful of the three were the Cholas. The Chola Empire, which arose in the 9th century, brought under its control a large part of the peninsula, that is the southern part of India. Please, whatever you see underlined, make sure you also underline. The Cholas developed a powerful navy which enabled them to develop India's sea trade in the Indian Ocean and to conquer Sri Lanka and the Maldives Islands. They did not go beyond to European nations, so they were just happy plying their trade in the Indian Ocean. Now, by the end of the 9th century, the Cholas defeated the Pallavas of Kanchi and weakened the Pandyas, bringing the Tamil country Tondamandal under their control. So please underline this as well. By the end of the 9th century, the Cholas defeated the Pallavas, the Kanchi and weakened the Pandyas, bringing the Tamil country Todamandalam under their control. Now, the first source. Inscriptions. The main source of information for the history of the Chola period is the large number of inscriptions of that period. So they were very careful about noting down and keeping a record of whatever they were doing. Rajaraja I conceived the idea of prefixing. Prefixing is adding to his inscriptions the main achievements of his reign. So this is how we get to know what all was being done under the Chola dynasty. The example of Rajaraja was followed by his successors as well. Consequently, there exists a formal record of the transactions made by each Chola ruler. So we have quite a comprehensive record of their transactions. The inscriptions of the Cholas are in the form of copper plate grants, stone inscriptions and inscriptions made on the walls and pillars of temples. The copper plate grants known as Anbil and Karandi, as well as the Kanyakumari stone inscription, give long list of rulers indicating the origin of the Chola dynasty. So from where did they come? Grants, is the financial aid provided by the king or people who are wealthy people. Another set of copper plate contains 31 copper sheets. These plates are written in Sanskrit and Tamil. They record a grant made to a temple by Rajendra Chola I. So these are the copper plate inscriptions that they are talking about. So please underline whatever you see underlined over here. Now, the inscriptions provide the following information about the Cholas. They tell us about please underline, about the Chola administration. For example, the Uttaramerur inscriptions gives information on the village administration, taxation and land revenue. So see, because land revenue is mentioned as a different entity here, so that means tax was levied on other things as well. Maybe the business, there was trade tax which the people were paying. Now, second is they record gifts and endowments to temples and brahmanas. So brahmanas and the artists and the craftsmen, they were all dependent on the grants given by the kings, the princes and various wealthy patrons. Copperplate inscriptions are the records of grants of villages, plots of land, or other privileges to individuals or institutions by the Cholas. For example, the Leyden grant, so called as they are preserved in the Museum of Leyden in Holland, of Parantaka Chola and those of Parakesri Uttam Chola are among the most important. They inform us about the construction of a temple or the setting up of a new image of the deity. Some inscriptions have royal orders on taxation and land revenue. Resolutions of village assemblies, judgments delivered against persons guilty of theft, murder, and other crimes are also recorded in these inscriptions. Resolutions are decisions which were taken. Inscriptions on temple walls serve the purpose of public registration, such as the record of sales, mortgages, and other forms of transfers of property rights in village lands. The Brihadeshwar Temple. The Cholas built a number of temples. The gateway of the temple was called Gopuram. The main shrine was known as the Garbhagriha. Here the images of gods and goddesses were kept. These images were made either of stone or bronze. The mandap or the audience hall was a place where people gathered for prayers. It was built in front of the main shrine. The chief features of Chola temples are their massive vimans or towers and spacious courtyards. The best example of Chola temple is the Brihadeshwar, also known as Rajeshwar temple, dedicated to Lord Shiva. It is located at Tanjavur and was built by the Chola king Rajaraja I. It is one of the best specimens of Dravidian style of architecture. So this is very important, children. Whatever Brihadeshwar temple, there might be a note on Brihadeshwar temple, so you have to underline each and everything and remember it in detail. The main structure of the temple has a great viman or tower which rises to a height of 190 feet. It is crowned by a massive dome consisting of a single block of stone which is 25 feet high and weighing about 80 tons. See, this is the Brihadeshwar gateway to the Brihadeshwar temple, and this is the viman of Brihadeshwar temple, the viman or the tower. Now, the massive temple building is covered from the base to the top with sculptures and decorative moldings. It is not clear over here, but if you will go to any South Indian temple, then they are elaborately carved. The shrine houses a gigantic Shivalingam cut in a monolithic single rock, about 8.87 meters high. The temple has many structures such as a Nandi pavilion. Children, please underline the Shivalingam cut in a monolithic rock. This is important. These are the main features of the Brihadeshwar temple. The Nandi pavilion, the pillared portico and large assembly hall are all important features. The Brihadeshwar temple is the finest monument of a splendid period of South Indian history and the most beautiful specimen of Tamil architecture. Underline that the temple has been declared as a World Heritage Site by UNESCO. Now, in the next video, we'll talk about the political history of Rajaraja I and Rajendra Chola. So I'll quickly read through the political history. Chola ruler, please underline, Vijayalaya established Chola rule in Tamil Nadu with Tanjavur as his capital during the middle of the 9th century. After his death, his grandson Parantaka I became the king. He conquered Madurai and defeated the Pandyas and the rulers of Lanka. By the 11th century AD, the Chola power had reached the height of its glory. Rajaraja I and his son Rajendra Chola were the two prominent rulers of the Chola dynasty or of this dynasty. Now children, I will not take up Rajaraja I now. Or can we do it? Let's see if we can finish it off. Now we'll look, because these are the two most important kings, the Rajaraja I and Rajendra Chola. So first let us look at the achievements of Rajaraja I. Rajaraja I was a brilliant general and campaigned in many directions: military, operation. He attacked the kingdoms of the Pandyas and the Cheras as well as parts of Mysore. Underline that. Rajaraja annexed parts of Deccan and overran Vengi, occupied Vengi. He did this in order to prove the strength of the Chola power. He took some territories of Mysore, Travancore and Coorg. Coorg is a part of Karnataka. Children, please underline that. Now, coming to the coasts of Kerala, Ceylon, that in earlier times it was known as Ceylon, now Sri Lanka, and the Maldive Islands had become rich through the money that came to them from overseas trade. India sent textiles, spices and precious stones to the West Asian countries. The people who came from Western Asia to trade in these goods were the Arab merchants who exchanged money for goods. Foreigners brought wealth to India through trade. So trade flourished amply during the reign of Rajaraja I. Rajaraja was aware of the importance of controlling the sea. He decided to show his strength along the coasts of South India, so he took out a naval expedition and attacked both Sri Lanka and the Maldive Islands. So he was not just happy conquering the kingdoms around Thanjavur, as it was the capital, but he conquered the certain parts of Mysore and Vengi. He annexed certain parts of Deccan also. He conquered the northern half of Sri Lanka, not the entire Sri Lanka, but only the northern half of Sri Lanka. He built the Rajarajeshwar temple of Lord Shiva at Thanjavur. On the walls of this temple are inscribed the main works of Rajaraj I. Under his rule, the Cholas became the supreme power in southern India. The increase in trade brought prosperity to the kingdom Chola Mandal. In fact, the word Coromandel has been derived from Chola Mandal. So for today, we will not go beyond this Rajaraja 1. Please, you have to underline whatever you see underline over here. Nothing is very difficult over there. Here in this particular, what we have learned up till now, it is very important, children, that whatever has been underlined, you have to learn everything by heart. Now just a month or so, and I am sure that the schools will reopen and we will be able to have an interactive session with you, with each other, children, where at least you can ask me questions. Now please, still, whatever, if there is something difficult over here which you have not understood, please note it down somewhere and we'll discuss it when the school reopens. Till that time, stay safe and stay blessed. Thank you.